This is ABC15 Mornings.
They fear for their lives and their children's lives, and I think they're scared of what's going to happen to their country.
Russian troops seem to have no plans of slowing down as they continue to invade Ukraine's capital. This morning, we're hearing from yet another Valley family who's worried for their relatives that are stuck in country.
Also, a major update on the origin of the coronavirus this morning. New research is showing the virus got its start in a live animal, but not in the animal we previously thought.
I touched a piece of that net. I had the honor of winning one as a player, but as a coach, I still have it right behind me as a reminder every day. Representation matters.
And as part of Black History Month, we're going to be meeting one coach who wants all little girls of color to feel like they can dream big, not just in the sport of basketball, but in all aspects of life.
Sometimes you got to hear it and speak it into existence.
Yes.
That you matter and you can do it. As we give you a live view this morning, coming up on 6 o'clock of downtown Phoenix, the Nest Cam is just kind of nestled into the city skyscrapers there. We hope you're having a great start to this Sunday morning. I'm Nohelani Graff.
And I'm Mark Thompson. Yes, still dark and early on your Sunday morning, but if you're up with us now, that means you've got a head start on a fantastic day ahead.
Exactly. And Mother Nature is slowly winding the clock back so that we do get more hours of daylight. So let's get into that most accurate forecast for you. It is going to be noticeably warmer today. Not hot by any means, but we are warming up. The clouds are also going to be moving in this morning, but we will stay dry. And then as we look ahead, 80s are back in the forecast. But this morning, it's chilly to start, so something hot in that mug and a coat if you're stepping out the door, definitely in order. Sunrise is just before that 7 o'clock hour this morning. Our temperatures are going to be trending up. 74 today, mild overnight in the low 50s, and then tomorrow even warmer as we step into the 80s. I will show you how long they look to stay around coming up in that full, most accurate forecast.
No, thank you. Now to our top story. Of course, we start with the crisis in Ukraine and the outpouring of support across our country from coast to coast. Hundreds marched in San Francisco yesterday, while the Empire State Building lit up last night in blue and yellow, the colors of the Ukrainian flag. The city of New York tweeting, "Stand tall, standing for peace." Even right here in Phoenix, many holding signs and flags and chanting outside the Ukrainian Cultural Center downtown.
So that brings us to your 5 things you need to know today. And number 1, as Russian troops continue to advance, U.S. officials say it's Russia's goal to get Ukraine to surrender.
U.S. defense officials, they say that the Russian military forces, they're about 20 miles outside of Kyiv. And despite calls for the Ukrainian president to leave, he has chosen to stay in the heart of the capital. Meanwhile, the White House announcing new sanctions on Russia while providing military equipment to Ukraine, as well as troops just posted just outside the border there to help with the ongoing surge in traffic.
Number 2, around 100,000 people have entered Poland from Ukraine since the start of the Russian invasion. Polish border guards reporting yesterday as a record day. The country welcoming 47,000 refugees. More than 200,000 people have left Ukraine so far, while 850,000 have been displaced. An estimated 4 million Ukrainians could leave if the situation worsens.
And number 3, the YouTube channel and YouTube itself is halting the ability of a number of Russian channels to monetize their social media content. The move follows the ban announced Friday by Meta, Facebook's parent company. They blocked Russian state media from running ads and making revenue on Facebook. Russia's Ministry of Communications has responded by accusing the social media platform of unlawful censorship.
Another talker to know today, it has now been 10 years since Trayvon Martin was killed. The unarmed 17-year-old was shot while walking home from a Florida convenience store on February 26, 2012. Captain George Zimmerman was charged with second-degree murder in Martin's death. He was found not guilty. Martin's death propelled the Black Lives Matter movement forward, bringing attention to racism and injustice in America. To honor Trayvon Martin's life, his family hosted their annual Peace Walk in Miami yesterday afternoon.
And number 5, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is President Biden's pick to replace Justice Stephen Breyer when he steps down. Ahead of the public announcement, the president called Jackson to deliver the news. Take a listen.
Hello.
Judge Jackson,
Yes,
this is Joe Biden. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you, Mr. President?
Well, you're going to be more wonderful. I'd like you to go to the Supreme Court. How about that?
Sir, I would be so honored.
Well, I'm honored to nominate you.
I am just so overwhelmed.
Well,
Thank
you
you.
deserve it. You deserve it.
And we are so grateful. Thank you, Mr. President.
No, I meant what I said. I think it's important. You're incredibly well qualified, and I think the court should look like the country. And I mean it.
Yeah, Senate Democratic leaders hope to have a vote confirming Jackson to the court by mid-April. If confirmed, she'll be the first black woman to sit on the nation's highest court.
The call of a lifetime. Now we want to get you the latest on the coronavirus. New for you this morning, 2 new studies claim to provide definitive evidence that COVID did in fact start in a wet market in Wuhan, China. The research posted online Saturday indicates that the virus had its origin in a live animal at the market in late 2019, which is what we originally thought. But instead of a bat, as previously thought, the animal was more likely a Chinese raccoon, a dog, or a similar sized mammal. Now, why this matters is one of the authors from the University of Arizona says that the data rules out the theory that the virus leaked from a lab in Wuhan. The studies join a growing body of research that supports an animal-related origin for the pandemic.
And the CDC announcing new guidelines for masks, saying those living in communities with low to moderate risk, they can lose the face coverings. Health experts agree that giving people a break from masks is a step in the right direction, but they caution that masks could once again be recommended in the future.
I would like to see, the most masking when we really need it, when there's another wave of COVID, potentially, next fall. So after Thanksgiving of 2022, it's very likely that we'll need to ask people to put their masks back on.
As for public transportation, masks must still be worn there at least through March 18th, but the CDC is reviewing those requirements as well. Well, masks, they are now officially optional in Tempe. The city just announcing the change that includes employees at indoor city-run facilities. It also includes special events hosted at city parks.
Meanwhile, the CDC also relaxing its mask recommendations for school children as the number of cases continues to drop. Universal masking is now only recommended for schools in areas with high community-wide coronavirus infection rates. About 28% of Americans currently live in those types of communities. The data comes from examining the number of new COVID cases in a community, the local hospital capacity, and the number of hospitalizations. As a general rule, public health officials can now say that school masking policies should match indoor mask guidance for the general population. Now, because of those newly released guidelines, tomorrow, Flagstaff Unified School District is going to be meeting to consider changes to its school district's face mask requirements. The superintendent is recommending that face masks not be a requirement, but rather an encouragement.
And we will no longer see daily COVID updates in our state. Instead, there will be weekly updates, and that starts on Wednesday. ABC15 data analyst Garrett Archer is taking us inside the numbers on what this means for you.
Starting Wednesday, March 2nd, Arizona will report COVID-19 numbers only once per week. This fundamental change means no more 7-day averages for cases and tests and a more stable and understandable way of looking at hospitalizations and deaths. Here's the difference. This is a chart of daily COVID-19 data. Notice the variations, oftentimes two much lower bars surrounded by higher ones. These are cases that are reported on weekends, much lower since many labs around the state are closed. To compensate for this, we add this line, the 7-day average. This gives us a better idea of the direction COVID-19 is actually taking. But this is what this same data looks like weekly. The direction of COVID-19 is much clearer, and you don't need an average. I spoke with Jessica Rigler, Assistant Director with the Department of Health, and she says that this change will bring COVID-19 in line with how they track other infectious diseases.
This change is very consistent with what we typically do with our infectious diseases. And our epidemiology and data teams, as well as our data visualization teams, came together to make a recommendation about what the next phase or step forward for our dashboard should be.
And while cases will be reported every Wednesday, COVID-19 hospitalizations, they're going to lag about 2 weeks. COVID-19 deaths, they're going to lag 4 weeks, meaning for the first month, COVID-19 deaths will be low since the department will not start filling in March data until the first week of April.
It brings back memories of good times to know what these guys went through to compare to how we live today. It's just unbelievable.
6:10 now on your Sunday morning. Coming up, it's a flight for a hero. How a local nonprofit is bringing some much needed joy into the lives of our World War II veterans. Experts, they are calling the Russian invasion the worst military action in Europe since World War II. For some veterans, it can be really triggering to see some of those images coming out of Ukraine. A nonprofit based in Mesa, it is holding a program at the Falcon Field Airport, trying to bring back memories of good times for our veterans by giving them a positive experience. ABC 15's Amelia Fabiano caught up with them as they gave their 469th veteran a flight fit for a hero.
It is nothing but clear blue skies over Falcon Field. Still, Sylvester Becker can't help but feel a little on edge for what's about to happen.
I'd probably feel better if it had more than one engine.
He's climbing in for a ride in a World War II aircraft named Amazing Grace, an era he knows all too well.
It's probably more flight-worthy than the B-24s were.
Cy is a World War II veteran.
We worked on the engine.
Serving in the U.S. Army Air Corps as an engine mechanic on B-24 Liberators in England.
This is him right here.
Not to mention, he just turned 100 years young in December.
Perfect. Have you done this before?
Getting into this plane seems like second nature.
Clear!
Pilot Tony Anger is taking Cy on a joyride behind the Superstition Mountains, above Weaver's Needle. A smile, never once leaving Cy's face. Anger telling me these moments bring a rush of positive adrenaline for the vets he takes up.
It brings back memories of good times to know what these guys went through to compare to how we live today. It's just unbelievable.
Cy reminded of the last time he was in a plane this small.
I got to fly over Germany in the B-24.
Yeah.
That was on VE Day.
Now, a new memory to add from the skies, this time over his Arizona home.
It was a nice flight. He's a good pilot.
Reporting in Mesa, Amelia Fabiano, ABC 15, Arizona.
He looked cool as a cucumber and right at home back in that cockpit. What a cool thing to be able to do for him. Now let's get to that most accurate forecast. You saw those beautiful skies in that video. More of the same today, although we will have more cloud cover building in the mid-morning hours, but our temperatures finally getting on track for where we should be this time of year. We're looking at a forecast high of 74 degrees. Our average for this time of year is 73. So we're right in that sweet spot there, but then we're going to go above average as we move through the rest of this week. Frigid start to the morning across the high country. We've got single digits in Flagstaff, Heber, and Window Rock this morning. Teens in Winslow, Show Low, and Prescott. Right at the freezing mark in Payson. 20s in Safford this morning. Here in the valley, we've got 40s on the board. We're at 40 degrees in Maricopa, 45 in Queen Creek, 41 in Levine, 41 in Buckeye as well. Santan Valley and Apache Junction has dropped into the upper 30s for this morning. But we'll have a nice warm up today, working our way into those 70s. It'll be 74 basically valley-wide today, with very few variations. In just a couple of neighborhoods, you'll be a degree above that in areas like Mesa and Gilbert today. Across the rest of the state, more 70s across the southern portion of Arizona, from Safford through Casa Grande and out into Yuma. Low 70s through the lower Colorado River Valley, although Bullhead City looks to stay in the upper 60s today. Central portion of Arizona, mild temperatures in Payson as you make your way into the 60s today, as well as Sedona. Prescott will stay just below the 60-degree mark, so still pretty cool there. And then cold temperatures remain up in the high country. 40s today from the Grand Canyon through Flagstaff and into Heber and Winslow. Show Low and Window Rock look to stay in the low 50s today. Now, as for that cloud cover, you can see it's already started to move in from the south. By mid-morning, we have widespread clouds here in the valley and in areas like Prescott, Sedona, and Payson. But to get into Flagstaff and more of the Show Low area north of the rim, it's going to take until the dinner time hours. So you'll have mostly sunny skies for the first half of the day, and then second half of the day, those clouds will slowly start to build. But you can see there's no moisture coming out of them. It's just a little bit of cloud cover. And then as we move into Monday night, that's when we get a little more clearing. As for those breezes, already starting this morning in the Bullhead City area, sustained around 15 miles an hour. We have 20-mile-an-hour winds in Sedona. They're going to continue to stay stronger through the mid-morning hours, but then start to die down in the middle of the day. Here in the valley, our winds will be just a little bit stronger than they were yesterday, closer to 10 miles an hour as we get to about 11 o'clock this morning, but not much stronger than that. Our temperatures, it'll take us until 9 to get back into the 50s. 60s show up by 11, and then we're climbing into the 70s in the second half of the afternoon until we peak at 74. Then tomorrow, the 80s are in the forecast, and we're climbing into the upper 80s by Wednesday, but our time there will be short-lived. We trend back down, and we're back in the 70s by Friday. Now I'll show you what the high country 7-day is going to look like coming up just a little bit later this morning, Mark.
No, hey, thank you. 6:18 now on your Sunday morning. Still ahead, how one local organization is doing its part to send medical aid to Ukraine. But next, as a growing number of people are experiencing hearing loss, an expert walks us through how to identify if it's time to see a specialist.
Thanks for watching ABC15 Arizona, streaming 24/7 on Roku and these streaming devices.
Next week is World Hearing Day, and about 48 million Americans suffer some form of hearing loss. And interestingly enough, the pandemic has more people realizing that might be them. So joining me this morning is Corey Castro, who co-owns Beltone West. Hey, Corey, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Nohelani. Thanks for having me on.
So first, talk to me about this. How did the pandemic let people know that they have hearing loss?
A lot of people realized that they were struggling to understand other people's conversations from having to wear masks, especially. So that's something that, people who maybe didn't realize that they had a problem before, it kind of came out over those first few months where they were just struggling a little bit more to understand what people were saying. And also lip reading. And lip reading will account for about 30% of speech understanding. So people who already had a little bit of hearing loss, other people are wearing masks, and so that drops the high pitch range down from what we have found. And then you take away the lip reading on top of that, and it's kind of just a recipe for a lot of frustration.
Fascinating, and I don't think a lot of people were aware. You also found not all masks are created equal.
That's right. So depending on the material of the mask, some masks are a little bit thicker than others, and so it will attenuate or drop the volume from certain pitch ranges. And typically that's going to cover the high pitch range, which is where you get clarity from speech, and that's where you hear the consonant sounds of speech. So a mask that is kind of like a cloth mask or the blue ones that a lot of people have been wearing will drop about 3 to 4 decibels from that high pitch range, which it's not a lot, but it can be definitely significant for somebody who already has hearing loss. The N95 masks, though, which are like the duckbill ones, the ones that doctors wear or hospital staff members wear, that'll drop it by about 10 decibels, which would be kind of like if you halved the volume.
So, how do you gauge then at this point if it is time for you to go in and see a specialist, take a hearing test?
Well, I recommend anybody over the age of 55 have at least a baseline hearing test done. That's the age when it starts to kind of build up to the point where you might start having problems and not quite be aware of it yet, because hearing loss develops very gradually over time. If you're having to ask people to repeat themselves, if you aren't able to understand people in like a restaurant or the grocery store, if you notice that you don't hear the birds chirping or you don't hear your turn signal clicking in the car, that's usually a sign of high frequency or high pitch hearing loss. And that's pretty common for most people over the age of 65. There's some responsibility for people who are on the other end of the conversation. And so if you are talking to somebody who is hard of hearing, and you're wearing a mask, it would be helpful to always face that person when you're talking to them. Slow down your speech a little bit so that it gives the other person time to comprehend the words that you're saying. I would talk a little bit louder, but not yell, because yelling can actually make it worse. And moving your mouth or your lips more to help enunciate your words a little bit better.
Corey, thank you so much for this insight as we look ahead to World Hearing Day next week. And if people need to come see you at Beltone West, then they know where to find you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.